Hey everyone, it's Lori Burdell, USTA Florida Tennis Management. Today's topic is on the history of tennis.
Who invented tennis?
Okay, before you leave, you might want to, watch some of this. You might be surprised at what you find out. It's apparent, this might be hearsay, but I looked through the books and everything and on the web to find out who actually kind of started the game. Technically, it was the 12th century monks in France. So their game was played on an elaborate indoor court with a really high net, and it was very narrow with the walls and people were watching, and they called it le jeu de paume, which is the game of the hand or the palm. So there were no rackets involved. The only equipment was the actual court and the ball itself. So before the server would actually serve the ball, they would say tennis, which means take heed or pay attention, something to acknowledge whether or not the receiver is paying attention and ready to receive to start the point. And it seems like some things haven't changed. You'll right before you serve, you might not say tennis, but you'll look up to see if they're ready. So that's very interesting, I think. Now, in the 16th century, it appears that France and England, they kind of intermarried amongst themselves, with the aristocrats. So they basically carried the sport over to England, and that's how England kind of developed a form of tennis over there. And that's kind of where we get to the first question, which is by Sabrina. And Sabrina asks, Sabrina, thank you so much for asking the question, who invented tennis? Now, tennis was originated, obviously, as you hear from before, it started in the 12th century. But now, all of a sudden, it's in England, and the gentleman that actually created it was back in 1874, and his name was Major Walter Clopton Wingfield. Whew, that's a mouthful. So he didn't call it tennis, but he called it was like a Greek term, and it was like pharistika, and or lawn tennis. So that's kind of where it came to fruition. So what he did, he was a retired military man, wanted to make some money, but he didn't want it to appear like he was actually working, which I find that interesting. So he created this game, invented it, he patented it in 1874. And he made his little kit, with the nets, which he got the idea from badminton, and the idea of playing on grass from croquet, which was, very popular back then. And he made this kit and he walked door to door. So he was like a door-to-door salesman, basically, which the houses, I don't think they were that close. So hopefully he wasn't on foot. And he went and sold these games. Well, he tried. So what I read was that he wasn't very successful. He tried and tried and tried, and people were looking. Oh, I have a badminton net. Oh, I have a paddle or a racket that resembles kind of what he was looking or using, because he was just combining different sports. So people were taking bits and pieces from what he was trying to sell, and they had their own kit. So needless to say, he really didn't sell too many of those. But you gotta give him credit, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here to this day supporting this amazing, amazing sport that we know as tennis. So thank you, Sabrina, for the question. So it appears in 1877, we had the croquet game was kind of going down a little, and the people who were playing tennis were basically kind of taking over the croquet fields. So bottom line is that in England, where all of the croquet and lawn tennis came to be, lawn tennis kind of squeaked their way in there and took over some of their the area to create the lawn tennis. And what they did was they lowered the nets, because originally the major had the nets really high, kind of like a badminton. And he made them in an hourglass shape, the actual court, as opposed to a rectangle, which it is known today. So basically, that's kind of what the Lawn Tennis Association did over in England back in 1877. They lowered the nets, they made the courts rectangular, and they changed the scoring to what we know as it is today.
Why is the scoring 0, 15, 30, 40 game?
Thank you, Sabrina. What a great question, and a lot of people were still skeptical of how the scoring actually started in tennis. And I don't know which scoring system you think really happened. Believe it or not, you know how it goes 0, 15, 30, 40, win by 2 on a game. Well, you 0, in France, they say it looks like an egg, so they would call it l'œuf, some egg. I don't speak French, so pardon if I said that. So l'œuf looked like an egg, so they called it 0. And so 0 looks like an egg and sounds like love. So kind of that's where that generated. So love is kind of stuck. Another theory with the 0-0 love all is that people play for the love of the game, so therefore there's no scoring involved. So I know quite a few people, and I certainly would not say that's my number one choice. Now this one sounds a little more popular with the scoring. Now, the major, he who invented the game of tennis, had used the badminton. Remember, he used the nets, and probably, believe it or not, he probably used the actual rackets itself as well. So that's where some people, tennis historians, are saying that the 15 mark, 15-30, had generated from that scoring system. Now let's get a little more detailed. Believe it or not, back where the monks were playing in the 12th century, their court was 45 feet from the net. So every time you score a point, you move up. So you move up 15 feet, boom, play another point. If you win the point, you move up another 15, that's 30. Then if you move up another, and you win one more point, that's 45, but they said, oh, you can't be that close to the net. So they called it 40. So it's 15, 30, 40. And if you win the next point, you're so close to the net, that's game. So that's kind of what they generated. So if you were at, say you were at the 40 part of the court and you missed it and you had to win by 2, so then you go back 1. That sounds a little believable. I believe that one, it sounds better. I heard about how it looks like a clock and they use the parts of the clock as segments, quarters. 15, 30, there's the 45 again. So the speculation of where'd the 40 come from, win by 2, they only gave you 50 points supposedly to win the game. So deuce, add in, back to deuce. If you win, then you go up to 50. Who knows? But as you know right now, it hasn't changed in a very long time. So it's 0, 15, 30, 40, and you're probably more confused now than ever. So thank you again, Sabrina, and you're probably saying, why did I ask that question? But I'm glad you did, because you know, you get to choose which one do you think it is. Thank you very much. And I believe your sister, Chloe, is just about to ask a question right now.
What surface were the courts played on?
And the last question Chloe asked was about the different surfaces that they played on back in the day. It appears, I would think, hard surfaces, wood. They're playing indoors with the sides, and stone, like papers, kind of. So that was what they used back then. And not until the late 18th century, kind of with the Victorian era, is when the grass courts, as we kind of know it today, with the lawn tennis, kind of became popular, and it stayed like as Wimbledon is played. So that is, in a nutshell, kind of in the past of, you know, how the surfaces and what they used and what they played on. And I certainly wouldn't want to play on any of those surfaces. Just imagine how uneven they are. Get some crazy bounces. They probably are pretty good. And that's probably why they limited their scoring to win by, you know, 4. Whoever gets the 4th point wins, basically. Also, just think of how it's evolved and what surfaces that we use now. Still using the lawn tennis. We have the man-made hard true, the clay, the green clay, the red, you know, from the French Open. You have the hard court surfaces. There's a lot of different textures that they put on the surfaces if you want more spin, or if you want to play slower, if you want to play faster. Played on carpet, indoor carpeting. That was really fast, and that was a lot of fun. It was great to serve. Felt like, you know, bam, you know, no one returned your serve. It was so fast. So it was a lot of fun. I encourage you to play on as many different surfaces as you can, and that way keeps you an honest player. So you have to know how to play all kinds of different shots, so you get a lot more in your weapon bag, so to speak. So you're not just a forehand slammer. You have to be able to volley if the surface is fast. But I know for a fact that Wimbledon has been mostly, you know, banging from the back court. Now, I believe you're starting to get a little more changing up. They're coming in and they're serving and volleying just a little. I see that coming soon, going back to the way things used to be. So I hope, Chloe, this answers your question. I really enjoyed answering your question and your sister's, and thank you for asking. And let's get some tennis going in the near future. Maybe we'll get to play someday. Thank you. Stay safe. The USTA Florida says thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on the courts in the future. Thank you.